March 19, 1945, Lubang Island, Philippines. The humid air clings to Second Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda's uniform like a second skin as he stands in the makeshift command post, a cramped bamboo structure hidden beneath the jungle canopy. Outside, the distant rumble of American artillery shakes loose droplets of moisture from the leaves above. Major Yoshimi Taniguchi's face is grave in the flickering light of a kerosene lamp, his voice barely audible above the symphony of insects and the occasional crack of sniper fire echoing through the valley. "Onoda-san," the major begins, unfolding a worn map across the rickety table between them. His finger traces the coastline of Lubang Island, marking positions with deliberate precision. "The Americans have taken Manila. They will come here next." 23-year-old Onoda straightens his posture, his hand instinctively moving to the Type 14 Nambu pistol at his hip. He had arrived on this island just 3 months ago, sent by the Nakano School, Japan's premier intelligence training facility, with specialized training in guerrilla warfare, propaganda, and most importantly, survival behind enemy lines. His orders from division headquarters in Manila had been explicit: conduct guerrilla operations and gather intelligence. Under no circumstances was he to surrender or take his own life. "You are to take to the hills," Major Taniguchi continues, his eyes meeting Onoda's with an intensity that seems to burn through the tropical darkness. "Continue your mission. The Imperial Army will return. It may take 3 years, perhaps 5. He pauses, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "But we will return." Onoda watches as the major produces a document from his breast pocket. Orders bearing the seal of the 14th Area Army. The paper is damp with humidity, but the characters remain clear. "Your duty is to hold this island, destroy the airfield, hamper enemy operations by all means available. You are forbidden to die by your own hand. It may take 3 years, it may take 5, but whatever happens, we'll come back for you." Around them, the remnants of the Japanese garrison prepare for what everyone knows but no one speaks aloud. The Americans are coming, and they are coming in force. Private First Class Yuichi Akatsu checks his rifle for the 100th time, while Corporal Shoichi Shimada sharpens his bayonet against a whetstone. Private Kinshichi Kozuka loads ammunition into canvas pouches, his young face set with grim determination. "Onoda-san," Major Taniguchi's voice drops to barely a whisper. "This is not merely an order. This is a sacred duty. The Emperor depends on you. Japan depends on you. You understand what I am asking?" Onoda bows deeply. "Hi, Taniguchi Dono, I understand completely." The major reaches into his pack and produces something unexpected: a Brazilian-made bolt-action rifle, an Arisaka Type 99, along with 500 rounds of ammunition. "This weapon," he says, running his hand along its stock, "will serve you better in the jungle than any sword. Keep it clean. Keep it ready." As if to punctuate his words, an explosion rocks the earth perhaps 2 kilometers away. American naval guns, Onoda recognizes. They're softening up the beaches for landing. Time is running out. "Take these 3 men," Taniguchi gestures to Akatsu, Shimada, and Kozuka. "They are good soldiers. They will follow your orders. When the enemy comes, and they will come tomorrow, perhaps tonight, you will disperse into the mountains. You will become shadows. You will be the wind through the trees, the fear in their hearts." Onoda studies his 3 subordinates. They are young, younger even than himself, but their eyes reflect the same unwavering resolve that had been hammered into them through years of military indoctrination. They know their duty. They know the code of Bushido: death before dishonor, loyalty until the last breath. The major stands and all 4 soldiers snap to attention. "Remember," he says, his voice carrying the weight of the entire empire, "you are not hiding. You are waiting. The Imperial Army will return. Do not believe any contrary information unless it comes directly from me or someone of superior rank. The enemy will try to deceive you. They will spread lies about Japan's defeat. Do not believe them." Outside, the sound of engines grows louder, American PT boats patrolling the coastline, their searchlights occasionally piercing through gaps in the jungle canopy like fingers of accusation. Onoda knows that by dawn, thousands of American soldiers will storm these beaches. The garrison of barely 50 men cannot hope to stop them. But stopping them isn't his mission. His mission is to survive, to persist, to remain a thorn in the enemy's side until the inevitable Japanese counteroffensive sweeps across the Pacific once more. The first American landing craft hit the beaches of Lubang at 0630 hours on February 28, 1945. Onoda watches from a concealed position high on the ridgeline as olive-drab figures pour onto the sand like ants from a disturbed nest. The crack of rifle fire echoes across the water as the remnants of the Japanese garrison mount their futile defense. Through his field glasses, he can see Major Taniguchi's command post overrun within minutes, the bamboo structure collapsing under a hail of automatic weapons fire. "Lieutenant," Kazuka whispers beside him, "should we not assist?" Onoda lowers his binoculars slowly. "Our orders are clear. We move deeper into the jungle. Now." The four men slip away from their observation post like ghosts, leaving behind the sounds of battle, the staccato bursts of Thompson submachine guns, the deeper boom of grenades, the screams of dying men in two languages. They move in single file through paths known only to wild pigs and monitor lizards, Onoda leading with his rifle at the ready, each man maintaining 5 meters distance from the next. The jungle of Lubang Island becomes their universe. At 25 miles long and 6 miles at its widest point, the island offers countless hiding spots among its mountainous terrain and dense tropical forest. Onoda establishes their first camp in a cluster of caves near the center of the island, where fresh water trickles from limestone rocks and the canopy is so thick that smoke from their small fires dissipates before it can be spotted from the air. Days blur into weeks. The Americans have taken control of the coastal areas and the small town of Lubang, but they seem content to leave the mountainous interior largely unpatrolled. Onoda divides his men into two groups, he and Kozuka forming one team, Akatsu and Shimada the other. They conduct reconnaissance missions, observing American patrol patterns, counting vehicles, memorizing faces. On their third week in hiding, they strike for the first time. An American supply truck traveling alone on the mountain road never sees them coming. Kozuka's shot takes out the driver while Onoda eliminates the passenger. They quickly strip the vehicle of useful supplies, canned food, ammunition that might be modified for their weapons, medical supplies, before setting it ablaze and melting back into the jungle. The entire operation takes less than 4 minutes. "This is how we fight now," Onoda tells his men that night as they divide the captured rations. "We are not soldiers anymore. We are spirits of vengeance. We strike and disappear. We make them fear every shadow, every rustling leaf. But the jungle fights them as much as they fight the Americans. The humidity rots their uniforms, turning sturdy military fabric into tattered rags within months. Fungal infections attack their feet. Shimada develops a fever that leaves him delirious for 3 days, muttering about his mother's miso soup and the cherry blossoms in Nagoya. Akatsu cuts his leg on a vine and the wound festers despite their stolen medical supplies. They learn to survive on what the island provides. Kazuka proves adept at setting snares for wild chickens. Shimada knows which fruits are safe to eat. The green bananas that must be cooked, the coconuts that provide both food and drink, the bitter root vegetables that fill the stomach even if they provide little nutrition. Onoda maintains strict military discipline, insisting on daily weapons maintenance, regular guard rotations, and detailed intelligence reports written on paper made from beaten bark. 6 months pass, then a year. The war should be over by now, Onoda thinks, Japan victorious. But the Americans show no signs of leaving. If anything, their presence seems to be growing more permanent. They've built proper buildings in Lubang town, installed generators, brought in Filipino civilians to work on construction projects. One humid morning in May 1946, Akatsu returns from a foraging mission with more than wild bananas. He carries a bundle of papers, leaflets that had been dropped from an aircraft and scattered throughout the jungle. The text is in Japanese, and as Onoda reads it, his jaw clenches. The war is over. Japan has surrendered. By order of General Yamashita, all Japanese forces in the Philippines are commanded to cease resistance and report to the nearest Allied position for honorable repatriation. Kozuka spits on the ground. American propaganda. Onoda studies the leaflet more carefully. The Japanese is perfect, too perfect. No American translator could capture the subtle nuances of military Japanese this well. But then he remembers Major Taniguchi's warning. The enemy will try to deceive you. It's a trick, he declares, tearing the leaflet into pieces. Think about it. If Japan had truly surrendered, would they not send a proper officer to retrieve us? Would Major Taniguchi not come himself, as he promised? No, this is exactly what we were warned about. The leaflets keep coming. Every few weeks, American planes drone overhead, releasing clouds of paper that flutter down through the canopy like massive snowflakes. Each batch grows more elaborate. Photographs of Japanese soldiers boarding ships home, newspapers from Tokyo showing rebuilt cities, even what appear to be personal letters from family members. Onoda burns them all. Look at this one, Shimada says one afternoon in September 1946, holding up a leaflet bearing what claims to be a message from the emperor himself, announcing Japan's surrender. They've forged the imperial seal. Onoda examines it through his magnifying glass. A piece of equipment salvaged from a downed American observation plane. The seal is imperfect. See here. The third stroke is wrong. The Americans are getting desperate. But doubt creeps in like moisture through their makeshift shelters. Akatsu has grown increasingly quiet, spending long hours staring at the ocean visible through gaps in the trees. During a raid on a Filipino farmer's storage shed, they discover a newspaper dated August 1946. The headlines speak of something called the United Nations, of American occupation of Japan, of war crimes trials in Tokyo. Lies, Onoda insists, but his voice carries less conviction than before, all of it designed to break our spirit. Their war continues. They ambush Filipino police patrols, believing them to be collaborators with the American occupation. They burn rice stores meant for the enemy. They shoot at anyone in uniform who ventures too close to their territory. The islanders begin to speak of them in hushed tones, not as soldiers but as ghosts, demons that haunt the mountains. In October 1946, they encounter something that shakes even Onoda's iron resolve. Hidden in a grove of coconut palms, they observe a Filipino wedding in the village below. American soldiers are there, but not as occupiers. They're guests, laughing with the locals, sharing food, taking photographs. One sergeant is teaching Filipino children to play baseball. They're fraternizing with the enemy. Kozuka mutters, but uncertainty clouds his eyes. That night, Akatsu makes his decision. Onoda wakes to find him gone, along with his rifle and a portion of their food supplies. At first, Onoda assumes he's gone on an unauthorized patrol. But when Akatsu doesn't return after 3 days, the truth becomes clear. He's deserted, Shimada says flatly. He's dead to us, Onoda replies, though the loss cuts deeper than he shows. They are now 3. The rainy season of 1947 brings new challenges. Their clothing has deteriorated to the point where they fashion replacements from stolen canvas and tree bark. Shimada has developed a persistent cough that echoes through their cave at night. They've run low on ammunition, forcing them to rely increasingly on captured weapons and handmade spears. One morning, while checking their fishing traps near a stream, they hear voices speaking Japanese. Not the stilted Japanese of propaganda leaflets, but the casual, colloquial Japanese of home. Creeping closer, they spot a group of 30 Japanese men in civilian clothes accompanied by Philippine Army guards. The men are calling out names. Onoda, Kozuka, Shimada. The war is over. We've come to take you home. Onoda recognizes one face, Sergeant Fujita from their original garrison. But Fujita is wearing civilian clothes, his hair grown long, his military bearing gone. This must be a prisoner forced to cooperate with the enemy. Onoda reasons. Or worse, a traitor who has genuinely surrendered. They watch from concealment as the search party spends 2 days combing the jungle, leaving supplies and more letters at known water sources. One package contains photographs that make Shimada gasp. Tokyo, clearly Tokyo, but filled with American cars and signs in English alongside Japanese characters. Doctored photographs, Onoda insists. The Americans have become skilled at deception. But that night, Shimada asks the question that haunts all of them. What if it's true, Lieutenant? What if the war really is over? Onoda's response is automatic, drilled into him through years of training. Until I receive orders from a superior officer, orders I can verify beyond doubt, our war continues. We swore an oath to the Emperor. Would you break that oath based on enemy propaganda? The question hangs in the humid air like the mosquitoes that torment them ceaselessly. Shimada doesn't answer, but Onoda sees something die in his subordinate's eyes. Perhaps hope, perhaps faith, perhaps simply the last vestige of the 19-year-old boy who had enlisted to serve his emperor. They move their camp deeper into the mountains, where the jungle is so thick that daylight barely penetrates. Here, among the pythons and the clouds of biting insects, they continue their war against an enemy that increasingly seems more confused by their presence than threatened by it. They are becoming legends, not of heroism, but of something else. A determination so absolute it borders on madness, a loyalty so pure it has become its own prison. By 1949, they have become creatures of the jungle. Their skin has taken on the dark, leathery texture of men who live beneath the sun and rain without shelter. Kozuka has fashioned clothing from stolen rice sacks and tree bark, while Shimada's uniform is more patches than original fabric. Onoda maintains his officers' insignia, polished daily with ash and water, the single symbol of the world they once knew. The Filipino police have increased their patrols, but they're hunting criminals now, not enemy soldiers. Onoda doesn't understand the distinction. When they ambush a police patrol in May 1949, killing 2 officers and wounding another, the retaliation is swift and brutal. Hundreds of Philippine Army troops sweep through the mountains with dogs and local guides who know every trail. For 3 weeks, they run. Shimada's cough has worsened into something that rattles in his chest like stones in a can. During their flight, scrambling up a rocky cliff face in torrential rain, his grip fails. Onoda watches, helpless, as Shimada tumbles backward into the darkness, his body striking rocks on the way down, coming to rest in a crumpled heap 40 feet below. Kozuka starts to climb down, but Onoda grabs his arm. He's gone. We can't leave him. We have no choice. The baying of dogs echoes up the valley, getting closer. He would understand. They leave Shimada's body for the jungle to claim, another ghost in a war that exists now only in their minds. 2 men remain from the original 4, carrying on a mission that the rest of the world has forgotten. The 1950s arrive with no fanfare in their green hell. They've learned to read the seasons not by calendars, but by the fruiting of certain trees, the migration patterns of birds, the intensity of typhoons that lash the island. Onoda maintains a rough count of days by scratching marks on a hidden tree, but even he acknowledges the count might be off by weeks or even months. They perfect the art of invisibility. When farmers work their fields, Onoda and Kozuka are watching from the forest edge, memorizing routines, identifying the best times to raid for supplies. They've developed a complex system of hidden supply caches scattered across the island, ammunition wrapped in stolen plastic, rice in buried clay pots, medical supplies in hollow trees sealed with mud. In 1952, letters arrive that are different from the propaganda leaflets. These are addressed specifically to them, including details only their families would know. Kozuka's letter mentions his sister's childhood nickname, something never recorded in any military file. Onoda's includes a photograph of his family home with visible changes. A new fence, different trees in the garden, his youngest brother now grown into a man. Torture, Onoda explains with conviction that sounds forced even to his own ears. They captured other Japanese soldiers, tortured them for personal information, then used it to create these forgeries. Kozuka says nothing, but that night Onoda catches him staring at his family photograph by moonlight, tears cutting channels through the dirt on his face. Their raids become more desperate, more violent. In 1953, they burn a rice warehouse that feeds half the island's population. When farmers try to stop them, Kozuka shoots one in the shoulder. The man survives, but the incident transforms them from nuisances into genuine threats. The bounty on their heads increases to 500,000 pesos, more money than most islanders will see in a lifetime. Search parties arrive regularly now, each more elaborate than the last. In 1954, Onoda's own brother comes to Lubang, spending weeks broadcasting messages through loudspeakers. "Hiroo, this is Toshio. Mother is sick. She wants to see you before she dies. The war is over, Hiroo. Father has sold the farm. We live in Tokyo now. Please, brother, come home." Hidden in the undergrowth not 50 meters from the speakers, Onoda feels something crack inside his chest. The voice is perfect. The slight lisp Toshio had as a child, still present in his adult speech. But it must be a recording, extracted through torture or drugs. It must be. That night, Kozuka asks, "What if we're wrong?" "About what?" "Everything." Onoda doesn't answer, can't answer. To acknowledge doubt would be to admit that the past decade has been meaningless, that Shimada died for nothing, that they've been shooting at farmers and policemen rather than enemy soldiers. The weight of that possibility is too massive to bear, so he doesn't bear it. He locks it away with all the other doubts, in a room in his mind whose door he's forgotten how to open. By 1959, they've killed 30 Filipino civilians and wounded perhaps 100 more. They're not soldiers anymore. The world has reclassified them as bandits, terrorists, murderers, but in Onoda's mind, every farmer is a potential spy, every policeman an enemy collaborator, every search party an American trick to capture the last free Japanese soldiers in the Philippines. The jungle has become their entire universe. They know every stream, every fruit tree, every cave large enough to shelter 2 men. They can identify aircraft by engine sound, predict weather by the behavior of insects, navigate on moonless nights by the feel of bark on different species of trees. They've evolved beyond soldiers into something else, living weapons programmed for a war that ended 15 years ago, but whose orders continue to execute in an endless loop of duty and denial. October 19th, 1972. The morning mist clings to the mountain slopes as Onoda and Kozuka move through their established patrol route, a circuit they've walked thousands of times over the decades. Their feet find the same stones, the same roots, worn smooth by repetition. They're approaching a farmer's field where they've successfully stolen rice 3 times this year, when Kozuka suddenly freezes. "Movement," he whispers, dropping to one knee. Through the tall grass, they can see a group of Philippine police officers inspecting the farmer's new storage shed. One of them is explaining something to the others, pointing at various approaches to the building. A training exercise, perhaps, or planning for an ambush. Onoda calculates quickly. 8 policemen spread out in a loose formation. He and Kozuka have only 23 rounds between them, bullets they've hoarded for months, cleaning each one nightly to prevent corrosion in the humid air. They should withdraw, but the rice in that shed could sustain them through the coming monsoon season. "We go around," Onoda decides, but as they move to flank the position, a village dog starts barking. The policemen turn, weapons rising, and Kozuka makes a fatal decision. He fires first. The crack of his rifle shatters the morning silence. A policeman falls, clutching his thigh. Return fire erupts immediately, not the single shots of old bolt-action rifles, but the terrifying chatter of automatic weapons. Bark explodes from trees around them. Leaves shred into green confetti. "Move!" Onoda shouts, but Kozuka is already running, crashing through the underbrush with abandoned stealth. They've practiced this escape route dozens of times, but never under such intense fire. Onoda hears Kozuka grunt, a sound of impact, of pain. But his companion keeps running. They don't stop for 2 kilometers, finally collapsing in a tangle of vines near a stream they know. Only then does Onoda see the blood. Kozuka's entire left side is soaked crimson, blood pulsing from 2 wounds in his chest. "Let me see," Onoda demands, tearing open what remains of Kozuka's shirt. The wounds are bad. One has clearly punctured a lung, producing pink foam with each labored breath. The other is lower, perhaps hitting the liver or kidney. With proper medical treatment in a hospital, Kazuka might survive. Here, with nothing but stolen bandages and jungle remedies, he has minutes, maybe an hour. "Lieutenant?" Kazuka gasps, blood speckling his lips. "I'm tired." "Don't talk. Save your strength." Onoda presses torn fabric against the wounds, but blood seeps through immediately. 27 years of survival skills mean nothing against modern ammunition and mortal wounds. Kazuka's hand finds Onoda's wrist, gripping with surprising strength. What if they were telling the truth? What if it's been over all this time? "Stop talking." "My sister." In the photograph. She looked so old. Kazuka's eyes are losing focus, seeing something beyond the jungle canopy. We've been killing farmers, haven't we? Not soldiers. Farmers. "You're delirious. The enemy. There is no enemy." The words come out as a whisper, barely audible over the sound of the stream. "There never was. We've been ghosts. Fighting shadows." Kazuka's grip loosens. His breathing becomes shallow, then irregular, then stops altogether. Onoda sits beside the body of his last companion, the man who has shared